Welcome everyone to another episode of our next podcast. And today we have a very special guest, and we are discussing the value of investing in healthcare, how healthcare should be seen not as a cost but as a vital investment in people and societies, and the disparity between the speed of innovation and the speed of delivery in healthcare. To unpack this, I'm joined by Kris Sterkens, the group company chairman of Johnson & Johnson in EMEA. Hi, Kris.
Hey
Again,
Dario,
pleasure
nice to
having you
join
here.
you again.
Exactly. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. Life has been reasonably good. Had a good summer, but now back in the swing of things going to the end of the year. So a lot of things ongoing geopolitically, business-wise. So never a dull moment.
I can imagine. We prepared some three very interesting questions on to which we would like to ask you today. And let's start with our first question, which is you have spoken previously about the paradox of innovative medicine, how we are in golden age of healthcare innovation with revolutionary new treatments and technological advancements. But that those innovations aren't always reaching the patients who need them, obviously. Can you maybe elaborate on that for our listeners?
Yeah, let me start with I think, which is a very positive message, quoting our CEO, Joaquin Duato. And he says let's say what we will see happening in healthcare in the next 10 years will be even much more than what we saw in the last 50 to 75 years. And I think that really has to do with the convergence of science and technology. So breakthrough technologies and treatments are emerging at a rapid speed, and they offer a huge potential to truly revolutionize healthcare and demonstrate the value that healthcare innovations can bring. And if you look back, Daria, at what's been accomplished maybe in the last few decades, hepatitis C can now be cured for 95%. HIV is really changed from a death sentence into a chronic disease. And we've seen 5 year survival rates of several cancers in the European Union since the 1990s. And almost now 3/4 of people remain in work following a cancer diagnosis. So the speed of innovation is showing no sign of slowing down, but the systems through which these innovations are provided to patients are not keeping up. So the access to patients is really hindered by outdated infrastructure, sometimes regulatory complexities, entrenched ways or silos ways of working, and sometimes also perverse initiatives. So patient access to innovative medicines in Europe, that varies over 80% depending on which country you look at, if you follow the marketing authorization. So in some countries you have that immediately, like in Germany, and in other countries it can take up to more than 2 years before patients can access an innovative medicine, if they can access even it at all, because sometimes it doesn't even get approved or reimbursed. So that raises critical questions. Are the current systems, are the systems that we have, are they agile enough to implement cutting edge solutions? And do our leaders have the necessary or the appropriate vision to drive policy changes and investments to bridge the gap between invention and application or access to patients?
Thank you so much. Let's build on that for a moment. And I would like to ask my second question, which is why do we face this situation about driving the disparity in the society?
Yeah, and I think that comes down to the fact that many barriers in health delivery really stem from thinking of health as an expense, from the cost of having to update infrastructure or to modernize systems, and upskilling to reimbursement challenges. But we really should stop thinking about health as an expense and instead see it as an investment that yields positive returns, both for individuals, but certainly also at a socioeconomic level, because investing in health is really about unlocking the potential for overall prosperity. Better health empowers people to chase their dreams, to achieve goals, to support families, but certainly also to fuel economic growth and prosperity at every level. And here's the positive thing about it: greater investment in health creates a positive feedback loop. So better health will lead to higher productivity. And as such, it would also generate better tax or higher tax revenues that can fund further healthcare improvements. So there's a few really important statistics that I like to just mention. If you think about it, 73% of the increase in life expectancy in high income countries between 2006 and 2016, which is just 10 years, is due to new pharmaceutical treatments. And healthier populations earn more, work longer, and contribute more to the economy. And here's also a really telling statistic. Every 1 year gain in life expectancy can deliver annual benefits valued at 4 to 5% of GDP. So if you think about what that would bring in additional revenue generation and tax generation, that would really help in a big way to solve these issues. And pharmaceutical innovation is also moving beyond the pill into precision medicine, immunotherapies, and gene therapies. And these kind of revolutionary therapies not only improve survival, but also save costs across the health system by avoiding hospitalization and other costs as well. So for each euro invested in health, Europe could see actually more than double in economic benefits alongside direct health improvements. But also on the flip side, Dario, and I think that is also very important to mention, the cost of inaction is significant because poor health already costs Europe about 2.7 trillion per year, or 15% of GDP, which is a mind-boggling number if you think about it, in really lost opportunity. And failure is really to increase investment risk, shortening life expectancy for future generation. So this is a scary statistic, but if we continue at 2020 health investment levels relative to GDP, so keeping health as a percentage to GDP constant rather than increasing, life expectancy at the age of 65 would decrease by 4 years starting in 2050. So we would be actually going backwards, and that's really why I think there's a call to action to act now.
Thank you, Kris, for this powerful statistics. Definitely, we should see the impact on everything what you said. Which leads me to the third question, which is where should future investment be directed to have the greatest impact, and how can we close the gap between innovation and access, which is always the question, right?
Yes, and that's of course a really critical question. And I would also like to refer to about a year ago, Mario Draghi, the previous president of the European Central Bank, took a look at Europe and saw how Europe actually can regain competitiveness versus US and China, because Europe has lost its edge versus these two parts of the world. And one of the things they said is a thriving healthcare system and a thriving pharmaceutical industry is really one of the ways forward for Europe to regain competitiveness. Now, if you take that to your question, you could actually see that if we would get to a holistic approach in healthcare, that is like, if you really think about essential things like prevention, early diagnosis, and effective treatment, really that would really help us to have a more thriving healthcare system across Europe. So the idea would be that we want to prevent what we can and treat what we cannot. Because if you think about it, prevention reduces the burden of let's say, before illness strikes, while early treatment supports faster recovery and keeps people in work. And advances in early detection and diagnostics have already doubled survival rate for some cancers like multiple myeloma, where my company is very active in. So innovation in therapies also for bladder cancer is creating more precise and less invasive options that improve quality of life. So these examples show you that if we double down on early diagnosis and prevention, we can really make big strides forward. So that is, of course, one way forward. And then, of course, investing in digital transformation and AI can also help to address the disparity in access. The European health data space can speed up digitalization of health data, and that will empower patients to own their journey by having access to their electronic health records anywhere in the EU, and making it also easier to use data for better policy making and healthcare innovation. So for me, the call is there's an urgent need for collaborative action between the healthcare sector and policymaker to drive sustainable investments in health. Policy plays a pivotal role in fostering a competitive and sustainable pharmaceutical sector, and in shaping systems to ensure more equitable access. So, by providing incentives for innovation and driving modernization, policymakers can open the doors for more investments in health. Now, the challenge often is that governments are in place for 4 years, and this requires long-term thinking. So for me, there's also a call to action like let's think beyond the, let's say, the normal term of governments and think for the longer horizon. Again, looking at it as an investment rather than a cost. So collaboration with governments and regulatory bodies is absolutely key to driving necessary reforms in the healthcare landscape. By working together, stakeholders can ensure that innovative treatments reach those in need more efficiently and effectively. And that collaboration can foster a culture of continuous improvement and adaptation to meet the evolving healthcare needs of the population in Europe. So, a pretty long-winded answer, Dario, but I do hope that people see that by taking a long-term view and really looking at it as an investment rather as a short-term cost that needs to be managed on a yearly basis, we can get out of this, I don't know, vicious circle and move more to a virtual circle of thinking more positively on how we can tackle this issue.
Thank you so much. Unfortunately, we came to the end of this podcast, but I really have to ask, and maybe to close this podcast with how we started. And this is any final thoughts, or maybe to sum it up about the discussion that health shouldn't be considered as a cost, but rather as an investment in the greater population, what you also mentioned through so amazing statistics.
Yeah, Dario, and I think you just mentioned it. The one message that I would leave the listeners with is really health is not a drain on resources. It's the foundation of resilience, prosperity, and opportunity. So every euro that we can spend on prevention, on innovation and treatment pays back not just in lives saved, but in stronger economies and more vibrant societies. So we have the science, we have the technology. We just need to invest in delivering these breakthroughs to people who need it and really see health as an investment rather than a cost. If that is the thought I can leave everyone with, I'd be happy. And I think that would be something to continue to focus on.
Thank you so much, Kris, for joining. It was very inspirational, and have a nice rest of the day.
Thanks, Dario, for having me and looking forward to the next opportunity.